What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Kick-Ass Podcast. I hope you had a fantastic WrestleMania weekend. I know I surely did. We will definitely be getting into WrestleMania a little bit later on. That will be most likely in a separate episode. We have to talk about the big, gigantic news that broke today. Early this morning, it was rumored yesterday afternoon that the report from CNBC was that WWE was going to be sold to Endeavor, and it was confirmed today. So that is what we'll be focusing on here first. I think that's a pretty massive deal. So obviously we'll be getting into WrestleMania at some point very soon. Like I said, this episode specifically is just going to be on the WWE sale. I'm very surprised. In a lot of ways, I'm relieved. And surprised just in the sense that it actually happened. It's one of those things where it's like you knew all the signs obviously were pointing towards that. And they were wondering if, or Vince McMahon was stating that he came back just for the sale of the WWE, right? But people were speculating and wondering if he came back to take over creative again and things like that, and just questioning in general why he's back. But it has been confirmed. So we'll get into what his position is going to be going forward, if Triple H is going to stick around, what happens to Nick Khan, all that good stuff. So thank you guys so much for checking the show out. First of all, if you're watching it on YouTube, thank you so much. Appreciate that. You can follow the show on Twitter at @KickAssPodcast_. If you're watching on YouTube, you can like the video and subscribe and all that stuff, I guess is what people say. But yeah, if you're just listening on Apple, Spotify, wherever, I appreciate you checking the show out. We are going to get right into it though, because like I said, there's a lot of shit, guys. A lot of information that came out today. And I don't know if you guys have, I'm sure you have by now, but there's also a video, it's about 16, maybe 17-minute video between the CEO of Endeavor, Ari Emanuel, which was and Vince McMahon, which is very fascinating. First of all, if you haven't seen Vince's mustache, you must stop what you're doing and look at that now. It's the creepiest thing I think I've ever seen. It's just, there's just something about it. And the whole time, and well, not the entire time, that's exaggerating a bit, but the majority of the time I was just looking at the mustache, and there's like a on the corner on I think it was his left side or right side, whatever. It just, I don't know, looked like maybe there's like a little piece of it missing. I don't know. So, and maybe it was just the position of the camera. Yeah, I don't know. It was just very distracting for me. Just very, very distracting. But we'll get to the interview itself and a breakdown of that in a minute as well. But that interview was fascinating to me in a lot of ways, just because I'm just always intrigued to see Vince McMahon do an interview, period, especially when it's a video interview. A lot of times, obviously, he would be on the conference calls for these stockholders and things like that. But and a lot of times, surprisingly too, like his audio was really shitty. So the quality of it, I don't know. I mean, I don't have the greatest quality either, but like, you're a billionaire, dude. Like, you can't get better audio. Not that he probably obviously really cares, but anyway, we'll get right into the report, and we'll kind of go essentially in chronological order. There's a really interesting timeline that I found from Forbes that I'll obviously be getting into with you guys as well, but it's fascinating. I still am kind of shocked, like I said earlier, that it's official. And Ari Emanuel said that they'll obviously be merging into a new company that they're still finalizing the official name on. The ticker for the stock exchange is going to be TKO, which is, pretty fitting. But they don't have an official name yet, which I'm skipping a lot. But I say that to say the fact that they're merging into a new company and that Vince is still going to be sticking around, it's just very interesting to me. And I think, say what you want, again, and I've said this as well in the past, but Vince is a genius. As difficult it is to give props sometimes, just with some stuff that we know, but you can't take away the business aspect of it. And to see that he bought WWE originally from his father for $1 million, and in 2023 he sold it for, I think it was 9.3 billion. Like, or that's the total value of the company as itself. Man, that's it's fascinating, it's mind-blowing, it's just it's everything, right? It's everything that we've loved for the past 30 years. And I think for me, that's why I personally was so concerned and so worried of who was going to be the actual buyer. I mean, of course, we all were concerned about the Saudi Arabia purchase and the rumor and things like that. But I had said in the past that I was thinking maybe Disney would be a good candidate for it. But from what I've read and what I've kind of learned about Endeavor briefly, trying to do a crash course, I feel like this is a really good option. And watching the video, or the interview rather, the video of the interview with Ari Emanuel and Vince McMahon from earlier today, it was released earlier today. I think they actually filmed it Saturday or Friday rather, and it was released today, I believe. But I kind of felt good. Of course, it's way early in the relationship, even as Emmanuel has stated, but I think that this could be a really good thing, and like I said earlier, I'm in a lot of ways relieved. But we'll get into the specifics now, so we can actually talk about exactly what we know so far. I'm going to be going off a couple different websites here. First one is from PW Torch, so shout out to them. They had released a report stating WWE issued a press release today confirming the news coming out of yesterday's report from CNBC that Endeavor would acquire WWE and merge the company with UFC to create a new company. Endeavor will control 51% of the stock, and WWE shareholders will control 49%. The new company hasn't been named yet. It will be led by Endeavor CEO Ari Emanuel. Vince McMahon, who returned to the WWE in January to help facilitate the sale, will be the executive chairman. Nick Khan will be president of WWE, and Dana White, of course, will continue as the UFC president. It's just so fast. Like I can't wait. I haven't been on Twitter too much today, but I can't wait to see all the shit that UFC diehard fans are gonna say. Just with the fact that I only like saying the word, but the fact that WWE is choreographed and scripted and things like that. And how dare we merge into their world, right? So I'm fascinated to see the backlash, if any, or just the general reaction from diehard UFC fans and those who just straight up hate WWE and think it's the shits. So I'm just me personally, I'm just very intrigued to see that. But they continue on to say, McMahon was quoted in the press release saying UFC and WWE will combine to form a $21 billion powerhouse. The statement itself was, given the incredible work that RA and Endeavor have done to grow the UFC brand, nearly doubling its revenue over the past 7 years, and the immense success we've had already in partnering with their team on a number of ventures, I believe that this is without a doubt the best outcome for our shareholders and other stakeholders. Together, we will be a $21+ billion live sports and entertainment powerhouse with a collective fan base of more than 1 billion people and an exciting growth opportunity. The new company will be well positioned to maximize the value of our combined media rights, enhance sponsorship monetization, develop new forms of content, and pursue other strategic mergers and acquisitions to further bolster our strong stable of brands. I, along with the current WWE management team, look forward to working closely with Ari and the Endeavor and UFC teams to take the businesses to the next level. The article continues to say the new company will be traded publicly as TKO and on the New York Stock Exchange, which I mentioned earlier. The board will have 11 members. 6 members will be appointed by Endeavor, and 5 will be appointed by WWE. The sale transaction has been approved by both boards of WWE and Endeavor. It is expected to close in the second half of 2023, and these sales still needs regulatory approval. And then it goes on with the full official press release, which is a little extra fluff, you know how they normally do. But the synopsis we just read there is pretty much the bulk of it. It does say together UFC and WWE expect to deliver an estimated 50 million to 100 million in annualized run rate cost synergies by leveraging, among other things, Endeavor's back office and robust infrastructure. Endeavor also expects significant growth across revenue areas, including domestic and international media rights, ticket sales, and yield optimization, event operations, sponsorships, licensing, and premium hospitality. They continue to tout themselves, which rightfully so, and just continue to talk the projected shares and things like that, which is pretty interesting. It says the transaction represents a contribution price of WWE of approximately 106 per share before any post-closing dividend. Additionally, UFC and WWE will each contribute cash to the new company so that it holds approximately 150 million. At closing, Endeavor intends to sweep all excess cash at UFC and shareholders of the new company, other than Endeavor, are expected to receive a post-closing dividend. So I myself am very intrigued, and I will be keeping an eye on that stock for sure, because back when WWE went public, and I think it was 2001, 2002, I think, what was it? I think the opening cost was like 19 or something. I could be off on that, but to see what it's at now, and the last time I checked earlier today, it was at like $86, and at one point it had a range. I think the highest it went has been over $100 per share, or it was definitely over 90 at one point. But I would definitely be buying into that, and keeping an eye on the opening stocks for sure with that new company. And again, that's going to be listed as for that ticker symbol TKO, which is just tickles me. It's perfect. But we go on, and shout out to prowrestling.net for this article here. This is a little bit more of the interview itself between Endeavor's Ari Emanuel, like I said earlier, and Vince McMahon. They were interviewed by Scott Wapner for a Wapner. It's like say there. But anyway, for a piece that ran Monday on CNBC, and if you go to, well, you guys can Google it either way, but Jason has the link in his article here. But I'll say before I kind of get into it, maybe I'll hold off on that. Yeah, I'll read the article first. But Vince was asked by Scott, I'll just say, the interviewer, why now, essentially, and shout out to him, and I'll give him credit because he asked if the recent scandal in the last year and everything that's kind of broken out since then, if that had anything to do, or the main reason why Vince was kind of pushing the sale of the company, and Vince was like, absolutely not. And say what you want or believe, and to be honest, I don't really think that's the sole reason either. I think it's pretty obvious if you've been following it in any aspect at all. Back when Nick Khan was first hired in 2020, that was the goal from the beginning, and that's like the main reason he was brought in, to help gear the company towards a sale. So the fact that these scandals and all that broke last year, I think is kind of, I don't want to say irrelevant, but in purpose to the sale. I mean, it maybe had some benefits, right? In the sense, in Vince's mind, like, okay, that's kind of wiping your hands clean, as terrible as that is, of any type of real backlash that would really affect it, because he doesn't own the company now. So, and at one point also, the interviewer asked if there's like, what would they do if there's any disagreement, or they have a matter, or anything really in the business relationship that they can't agree on. And Ari Emanuel had answered, essentially, and pretty much what he said was, it's a relationship, essentially, in that he's willing to work and to listen, and he was very complimentary of Vince McMahon, which I was, I don't want to say surprised by, but it was interesting to hear. And I personally didn't realize their relationship went back 20, it was either 20 or 23 years that he had mentioned in there. But that's really cool. And I think at one point when Emmanuel was an agent, Vince had, that's when they first met, and Vince kind of guided him on some things, and they just kind of, I guess, grew from there. But he said essentially what he does with his other partners, and with essentially, like, for instance, Dana, he said if they can't come to an agreement, then they just don't do it. So that's pretty cut and dry. So we'll see. And again, there's gonna be so many questions that we have going forward, right? What does the company look like? Triple H has a big announcement that's supposed to be on Raw. So we'll see what that ends up being. I obviously have not seen Raw yet, but I don't know. I don't know. There's just a lot, right? So like I said, we'll get into kind of a quick synopsis of the interview that they had together. And Vince had mentioned, like I said, it was the right time. It's the right time to do the right thing. It's the next evolution of WWE. I could probably do what Ari is right now with the UFC, and it would take me 10 years. Vince said by that time he did. Vince said that by the time he did, Emmanuel would be another 10 years ahead. It makes all the sense in the world for all these synergies we have, and to extract all the value we can out of the marketplace. Vince was asked if the deal would have been made. Oh, and they talk about the scandals there. Essentially, if the deal would have been made had it not been for his personal scandals, and Vince said absolutely, because it makes sense. The interviewer asked is this like essentially like how does he feel? Because it's been a family business, obviously, right? We all know the history of and the lineage of WWE. I mean, obviously he bought it from his father, and it was a family company, right? We all expected it to be passed down to either Shane or Stephanie, or a combination of them, and of course Triple H in there as well. But no, and it's still fascinating to me too. I wonder why. Like, I wonder what changed and at what point. Um, and how long ago it was that Vince realized that he didn't want to keep it in the family. And if he were to die today, would he want his family members to be the owner of the company? And apparently not, you know? Um, I don't know. And I would love to just really truly know how Stephanie and Shane and Triple H truly feel about this decision. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously Stephanie resigned, so I hope she's enjoying her time off and enjoying just I don't want to say doing nothing because I'm sure she's doing a lot of shit, with her family, but just WWE wise, I'm sure she's just happy not to be involved and not to have to deal with any of the stress and anything. So hope she's getting some R&R out there, we'll say. But Vince, again, was asked if this is a good day for him. And he said, a good day? It's a great day. One of the greatest days of my life. He said it was not a tough day to give up his family business, and once again stated that things have to evolve. He said it's the right business and family decision. Emmanuel was asked about Vince holding an executive position in the new company. He joked that he would have body slammed Vince if he thought he was going to leave. Emmanuel referred to Vince as a visionary. When asked if he wanted Vince to stay, Emmanuel replied, "Oh God, yes." And he did. It was like super quick with it. And that's what I was saying. He was so complimentary of Vince the entire interview. He said Vince said it didn't take much to convince him to stay and said that he loves what he does. Vince claimed that he was ready to walk away if the right sale offer was made. Emmanuel said he wasn't going to let Vince leave. Wapner asked Vince if he intends to be involved in the WWE creative process, which is key for a lot of us fans, as he has been in the past. Vince said yes and no. On a higher level, yes. In the weeds, which I always love to get in the weeks in the past. Weeds. I think that's supposed to say weeds in the past. No, I can't do that. And that was interesting to me. He said, and I'll read that again. Uh, Vince said, on a higher level, yes. In the weeds, which I always love to get in the weeds in the past, no, I can't do that. And the fact that he said, no, I can't do that, the I can't do that part is very interesting to me. I wonder if that was part of a agreement when he paid back the millions of dollars. I think it was what, 14 million, 17 million, just seven, whatever it was, for everything that happened last year. I wonder if that was part of the deal, or I don't know. It's just very interesting the word choice that, and it could mean nothing. There's just very interesting word choice. But Emmanuel, who previously said Endeavor won't be involved in the creative process, said that if Vince wanted to return to television, he would not stand in the way. Though Vince downplayed the idea of the Mr. McMahon character returning, and he did. He said Mr. McMahon is dead. So that was again interesting as well. Emmanuel was asked about the upcoming television rights negotiations, which is supposed to be happening or beginning soon. Emmanuel touted the success of Raw on cable and SmackDown on broadcast television. The rate card is way below market value by a significant amount, Emmanuel said. He added that content is king and he believes WWE will get a proper price, which I'm sure they will. Vince was asked about his legacy given where he took the company and what's happened over the last year and whether he has regrets. Vince said that he's made mistakes personally and professionally over his 50-year career. He said that he's owned up to every one of them and then moved on. Vince said he's not the one who will write his legacy, so essentially he's not concerned about that. But he then did say he's someone who has had an extraordinary amount of fun, a great passion for what he did, and wound up doing the biggest deal that he's ever done in his life. And Powell's POV, which I really value his point of view, he said, Emmanuel said he hopes that the new company will go public within 4 to 6 months, though he added that it depends on the government, which he did. He also defended Vince's new contract, which gives him ownership of his own intellectual property by saying that Vince should be the one who controls his own legacy. It is what it is, Vince said regarding that agreement, along with him receiving a big payoff if the company is sold. Vince stating that he won't be in the weeds. And this is Powell's point of view again. Vince stating that he won't be in the weeds as part of the creative process is certainly vague. This seemed like a chance for him to endorse Paul Levesque's role in the creative process, but Levesque's name was never mentioned. That said, I assume that Levesque will continue to head the day-to-day creative work, though there doesn't seem to be anything stopping McMahon from reassuming control of that part of the business, which is kind of terrifying when you think about it. I'm not even going to front on that. But yeah, we did get a report though that, and I think I just closed out of it. Yeah, that Triple H is going to remain in control of creative though, so that is a positive, and I will keep that positivity out there until I see otherwise. Because I don't want to even think that we can go backwards, right? So staying positive on that one. But regarding Nick Khan, he of course had a interview with, who was it with? Oh, in an interview with Axios, excuse me, WWE CEO Nick Khan said a combined streaming deal is a possibility in the future between WWE and UFC. They'll have separate they will have separate TV deals in the future. Regarding the possibility of a combined streaming deal, Khan said, the good folks at NBCU, which is Peacock's parent company, have been tremendous partners to us, so they'll see what they have to say. WWE's streaming deal with Peacock ends in 2026, so we still got some time on that. And UFC's current deal with ESPN Plus ends in 2025. In regards to WWE's TV deal, Khan said he wanted to respect WWE's current partners, Fox and NBC. The most important thing is that Fox and NBC, from a WWE point of view, feel respected in the process, so we're going to enter those conversations with them. Khan also stated that NBCU and Fox had right of first refusal when it came to new TV deals for WWE programming. We're going to see what that looks like, and hopefully it's robust, but we don't get out of the right of the first window. I don't know what that means. And we strike a deal with each of them. Khan continued to say that there are other options out there if they are unable to strike a TV deal with their current partners during the right of first refusal window. I gotta look that up. He says, if we're not able to do that, we'll see what the marketplace has to say and ultimately choose the right partner for the WWE audience and shareholders. So, and regarding the Saudi Arabia of it all, WWE will continue its relationship with Saudi Arabia despite Endeavor's reluctance to do business with them in the past. Our relationship with the kingdom is a terrific partnership for which we're appreciative of, and nothing in terms of anyone else's prior experience will affect that, is what Nick Khan said regarding that. So interesting. But the timeline that I mentioned earlier, a quick rundown of just the kind of last year-ish. I'm not going to get too in-depth at it because you guys already know. But starting back in, obviously, last year when the scandal information all broke out, Vince, as we know, it was revealed that he had a few non-disclosure agreements out there, and there were some hush money settlements. So he had to step down and officially, quote unquote, retired in July 22nd, 2022, which is crazy. His tweet had said, at 77, time for me to retire. Thank you, WWE Universe. Then, now, forever together. Which obviously did not end up being a never say never, right? Type thing in wrestling. Excuse me, guys. But, and again, that was July. So a few short months later, Vince McMahon WWE return rumors begin. And that was on December 13th of 2022. Vince had expressed interest in a WWE return less than 5 months after being forced to resign. Per a report from Joe Palazzo of the Wall Street Journal, Vince felt that he had received bad advice from those who advised him to step down. Excuse me, guys. Vince McMahon returned officially back in January 5th of 2022. After issuing a letter to the WWE Board of Directors seeking reinstatement, Vince was granted his wish. 3 board seats were vacated in favor of McMahon, Barrios, and Wilson. 3 additional board seats were vacated, including Stephanie McMahon. According to company line, McMahon's return was only as an executive in a limited capacity to facilitate a WWE sale and or television rights negotiation. So, technically he's right, Triple H has still been in charge of creative. He hasn't, as far as we know, really had that much impact in the creative side, he being Vince. So again, I'm not gonna freak out about that part. I think Vince wanted to get his bag, and he's still going to be in charge of the company. He's still going to oversee shit. But I don't see, like you said, I don't see him writing the weekly product. And if you're not writing the weekly product or being involved in the weekly dealings, then there's only so much you can be involved in as a whole, right? I mean, obviously, if you want and have long term plans for like a Roman Reigns and the storyline, with the bloodline and things like that, then maybe it'll be like one of those things like in the late 90s, they would say that it would be one of those things where he would ask like, okay, so what do we have for The Rock and Steve Austin, and then everyone else was just kind of left for the creative team. um I could see him maybe having some say so in that, but I mean, at the end of the day, he still does have that position and have that power, because Emmanuel is not moving him from that, so or restricting him from the company. So we'll see. But the article, regarding the timeline goes on. Again, that was the return of Vince McMahon was on January 5th. 5 days later, we had Stephanie McMahon resigning on January 10th. She stated about 8 months ago, I took a leave of absence, and within a few weeks, unexpectedly had the opportunity of a lifetime. I had the privilege to return as the co-CEO and chairwoman of the board of WWE. Our founder, Vince McMahon, has returned as executive chair and is leading an exciting process regarding strategic alternatives. She did previously quit the company on May 19th of that year. The timing of Stephanie once again resigning with her father back in power had painted a picture of tension between Vince and Stephanie. Her resignation seemed to also spell the beginning of the end for the much celebrated Triple H era, which we see it did not. WWE was subject to bogus reports of they sailed to Saudi Arabia on January 17th, so again, a week later. Several outlets have reported that WWE had been sold to the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia in a news story that led to immediate widespread backlash and panic among WWE fans and superstars. WWE came forward to deny these reports the following morning. Contrary to reports stating otherwise last night, there is no deal in place at this precise moment for WWE to be sold to Saudi Arabia's Public Investment Fund or any entity, is what Ariel Helwani had tweeted out that following morning. And at that point, they were still exploring all options. The end of March, on March 31st specifically, Vince McMahon signs a WWE employee contract, so not too long ago. Vince had signed a 2-year employment contract with WWE in a deal that dated back to January 9, 2022, per SEC filings. WWE actively remained in talks to sell the company as WWE hosted several prospective buyers during WrestleMania weekend. And then it was made official on April 3rd, 2023. On WrestleMania Sunday, CNBC reported WWE was expected to be sold to Endeavor, and the sale was made official with an announcement on Monday, April 3rd, 2023. WWE will now merge with UFC to form a $21 billion publicly traded company, which is fascinating. Again, we obviously are still very early on in what we know, but we did get a lot of information on day one, which again is to be expected when you have two first billion-dollar companies, multi-billion-dollar companies, and when they're publicly traded. So there's not much surprise there. I'm very intrigued that this is a merge and the new company that's going to be formed. Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. But I'm very intrigued by it. It's cool to see. I'm very happy that it didn't go to other buyers. So I think we all got lucky in that regard. But I think it is very relieving as well that Ari Emanuel is not interested in taking over creative at all. He essentially is just being like the support system and the financial structure and the backbone for WWE, as pretty similar to what he's doing in UFC as well. So I think that what more can you ask for, right? And again, like we said, it's still really early on in the process. We'll see what this means long term. We'll see how this affects the product, but I think it's a great thing that Triple H is still involved as well. I think that that's a positive sign. So fingers crossed that stays the same. I think it's a good sign as well that he's the one coming out tonight on Raw to make a major announcement. So we'll see again what that is. But you would think again too, and we've seen right, that things can change within a day. But I think it's a good sign that Triple H is the one coming out tonight and making the announcement, and not say Vince McMahon or anything like that. So we'll see, guys. We shall see. And again, like I said, we will be getting into a WrestleMania review and get a little bit more time. But I definitely wanted to just touch on the big news that we had from Sunday and officially confirmed on today, earlier this morning, that WWE and UFC Endeavor are merging. So we'll see what that means going forward. Again, for the product, I again can't wait to see the backlash from everyone, or at least from the UFC fan side. And yeah, we'll see what this means business wise. I'm intrigued to see as well. I mean, obviously, WWE has a contract with Peacock until 2026, but I'm intrigued to see if after that does Endeavor want them to move back to like the pay-per-view aspect of things. And no longer have like a subscription service for, or at least have the subscription service for your old content and your like your archives and things like that, but not for new pay-per-views, or which they would be again, which I hope not, because I ain't shilling out 50, 60, $70 a month. So we'll be seeing about that. But thank you guys so much for checking out the show, for downloading, watching, streaming, wherever you do so. You can follow me on Twitter at @kickashpodcast_. You can follow my personal page on Twitter as well at ASHMANNS. You can watch the video version on YouTube, like I said earlier, at Kickash Podcast. So thank you guys so much for checking out, and we'll be talking soon.